For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kristen Christian. I have been with Algorithm for a little over 11 years now, and I was formerly from the Wild West of Colorado, but have since relocated to the Kansas City area. Today, we're going to talk about streamlined cost rolling and intercompany drop shipping. So as we're talking, we're coming into our absolute favorite time of year for everybody, which is standard cost rolling time. Now, even if you don't standard cost, you still need to roll your bill of materials from time to time. I think the current cost rolling screen in the previous versions has always been a little bit confusing for people because you don't do it all the time. It tends to be, something we do occasionally. So you would open up the screen and there would be something populated in there and you would think, oh, where's all my bill of materials? They have taken this whole process and streamlined it. So it's just beautiful right now. It gives you full control of your cost rolls without immediately updating your costs. You can generate these safely so that you'll still be able to see any changes that happen before you apply them to your live data. Better yet, we can go ahead and target specific BOMs, specific revisions, or material ID. So if we change a component, we can just roll BOMs with those components. We don't have to do our entire file or do them individually. We can also exclude BOMs based on a replenishment source. So sometimes, I know some of you have bill of materials for items that you actually purchased, but you kind of maintain a bill of material for it. We can ignore those and get them out. So we're only dealing with manufactured items, which makes that go a little bit faster. So on our bill of materials workspace now, you're going to see this new, under the process, we get this new process called generate cost rollups. When we do that and we open that screen, it's going to bring in all of our bill of materials, which is fantastic because that's what we expected to see before. So it was always a little misleading. We had to remember. We still have the ability to go with a single level or a multi-level roll, but we're also seeing, we have the item class. We could just roll that. We can specify a specific inventory ID. We can specify a BOM ID, but now we can go down into that revision level if we want to do that. But what I love here is this BOM material ID. I can go ahead and select an item and it will filter out just the bill of materials that contain that item. If you've done a cost roll before and you've rolled the entire thing, sometimes this can be a very labor-intensive process and take quite a long time, especially if you have a large bill of material file. So having this ability to say, all right, I just entered some new bill of materials, or I just did a mass update, and I can go ahead and change something. I can go ahead and just pull in only the bill of materials that I want. Another thing about this being a process screen that makes it so fantastic is we can schedule this. This can go on, we can add it to that schedule and say, oh, I want to do this at the end of the month. Maybe I want to roll my BOMs more frequently. And we're still not going to necessarily have to go ahead in a standard costing environment, update pending. But if you're not in a standard costing environment, we still want to update those costs from time to time on your bill of materials because that affects your planned cost on production. So let's take a look at how that works. I'm just going to pick a certain, just pick a few of them here. And when I go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to pick a few bill of materials, or I can process all. So again, we have these buttons that we should all be used to. Process all, doesn't matter what we select, we're getting everything. Or we can select and hit process. And you're also seeing, as Angel mentioned, this modern UI and how it looks a little bit different, but it still works pretty much the same. So once I process that, it's going to go ahead. It's going to roll just the BOMs I'm selecting. And now when that's done, when I go to my process roll-up screen, I am seeing just the bill of materials I selected here. So now you're going to see that this screen looks a little bit different. We have a lot more options than we used to. And you also see that we had our buttons to say, oh, update pending or roll cost. Those are gone because we've done our cost roll. Now we have this action menu here, and we can go ahead and do several things. But the most exciting thing I see in here is we can archive these. I can archive this cost roll even before I update all my standard costs or update my pending costs and say, so that'll let me do some comparisons. I can kind of put this aside as an archive, and maybe I want to make some material changes or some changes to my work centers for the labor, or maybe I need to recalculate some overhead because that doesn't look right. I can go ahead and roll this again and then compare that with the archive and say, how did that make that change? That's a very powerful tool. We can also go ahead and update our pending costs if we're in a standard costing environment and push that through, or just update our material costs. But once we do that update pending costs, now you're going to see, instead of having to go out of this screen and go somewhere else, this is where the streamlining really comes into effect. We have that ability here to run that preview standard cost changes and run that report that's going to show us what our standard cost changes are. And then the update standard cost button is sitting right next to it. And we can go ahead and push that through so that we can revalue our inventory at that time if we feel good about where that's at. If we don't, we can always come back and toggle back to our generate cost roll-up screen, roll it again, make different selections, and work with this a little bit better. So we're gives us that ability to kind of go back and forth, look at those changes. And the best part is we can archive those changes, and then we can always look at our archived roll-ups, and we'll start to see some of that history in there that we can use in different reports or different comparisons. The next thing that I want, before we go there, on your bill of material preferences screen, there is a couple checkboxes here for the cost roll. So in order to get that archivability, which you're probably going to want that, you need to check these boxes here in your preferences screen to say allow the archive, or do I want to auto archive when update pending? You may or may not want to do the auto archive because it could be a very big file. It might not be something you want to keep that much on hand, but those two checkboxes are there in your BOM preferences screen. The next thing that is very fun is we have the ability now to do intercompany drop shipping. So we've always had that ability to go, if we had companies in the same tenant that we could buy from and sell to each other, either for money or for an intercompany transaction. But we didn't have the ability to say, you know what, I want to drop ship from my other company over here. I don't want to have to bring this in and ship it out. I want to be able to do this drop ship. So I'm just going to show you that briefly. If you maybe maybe you don't know that we've always had that ability to drop ship from sales order to a vendor, but now we can do it with that other company. So for example, I have a sales order here in the nice new user interface, very, very easy on the eyes. And down on my sales order line, I have marked this for PO and a source of drop ship. So if I come up here and I create the purchase order, we're going to go ahead. It's going to generate that purchase order. We're going to bring us to create purchase order screen. I'm just going to verify here that my vendor is my other company that I want to buy from. And that's hanging up on me a little bit here. My poor computer's running out of processing space these days. So now I made one transaction, a sales order to my customer. I've gone through and created this purchase order to my other company, and I'm going to go ahead and just remove the hold from that. When I do that, that's going to bump this over here into the other company. So in my generate intercompany sales orders, this kind of puts that in that queue for my other company. They know they have a purchase order waiting there where they can come in and say, okay, when they go ahead and select that, that's going to generate the sales order. So I created a sales order to my customer. I didn't have to do any additional keying to create the purchase order. On my related company, I don't have to key anything to create the sales order. And when they get that, it's going to tell them I'm selling it to my other company, my related company, but I'm going to ship that to their customer. Go to sales orders. I'm going to go over to sales orders here. This is going to put this just in the queue for them to ship it as they would ship any other order. And when they print their tickets, they're going to see I need to ship it to this other customer. We're going to drop ship it. And we didn't have to do any additional keying for that. The big advantage of this is that, first of all, we only have to enter it once. It's good for the customer. We eliminate a lot of any room for error if we would have had to type in a purchase order and then they'd have to send that purchase order and then key it in on the other side and then ship it out. Every time we touch that manually, it leaves more room for us to make errors. So those are two of my favorite things that have come out of 25R2, in addition to this beautiful new user interface, which is very intuitive and really easy to look at.